I do a show called Big Rich, TD, and Fletch, and the third leg of the name there, Fletch, Ben Fletcher is
Fletch.
an enormous, and I mean an enormous Niners fan and Brock Purdy apologist. Now, he doesn't need to apologize for much because Brock Purdy, and I'll admit this, and I've loved watching his ascension to a starting quarterback off the roster last year. What he did in the postseason was beyond admirable until he hurt his elbow last season. And then this year, to be frank, he played an awful game in the divisional round against the Green Bay Packers. However, he recovered well on that last drive. I think we can sort of, very neatly in a couple of sentences describe his career as such. But the lengths that a 49ers fan will go to prove that Brock Purdy is the next coming of Tom Brady, to anybody who says anything negative about him it's ridiculous. It's strange. It's beyond what it needs to be. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think there's a lot of analysts who have Brock Purdy painted as something he isn't, as something far worse than he actually is. And I think maybe that's a little bit of, hey, I'm trying to stir the pot because this guy's coming off his worst playoff appearance as a starting quarterback. Mind you, he's only appeared in 3 playoff games, so very short sample size. But it's odd. It's odd to hear people so passionately defend a guy who's barely played football at this level. I mean, he's still in the infancy of his career. He's got a lot left to prove. He's shown a lot. He's shown a great deal, in fact. But he still has a lot left to prove before he gets the level of defense that some 49er fans want to put up for.
Ooh. Go ahead, Brian. Get us back on track here.
I mean, listen, he's preaching to the choir right here because, listen, it's one thing if you really do give him no credit whatsoever, and you're just taking shot after shot and maybe taking some unreasonable shots. Okay, that's one thing. But if you say something that's completely accurate, it should not be taken as if you just gave him double birds and you're giving him no credit whatsoever.
Yeah.
If you just simply say he's got to play better for the Niners to win it all this season, that's true.
100%.
He did not play well against the Packers. And like Rich said, give him credit for that final drive. He was 6 for 7. He showed up when it finally mattered most. Yeah. But that was not a good game. You remember when Nick Saban was ticked off after wins at Alabama? Where they'd win by like 28 points, and he would sound like he lost by 30. Because he knew that wasn't going to be good enough against better opponents. It's the same thing with Brock Purdy. He's got to step it up or they're not going to win it all. But if you say that, these Brock Purdy fanboys and fangirls, they come after your freaking jugular. They are crazy. And the one thing that I keep coming back to is they're just like, oh, you can check that box, come back, win, done deal. It's like he's got one. He's got one, albeit it was a significant one, but there's one. Why are we acting like he's John Elway? He's the comeback kid now after one comeback win. It's just, I got to see more. And I don't understand how that's just withholding all credit from the guy in the eyes of the Brock Purdy fan club. It's just, it's gotten crazy where it's at now.
Yeah, fan short for fanatic. I think that's kind of what we're talking about here, because I think if you asked a lot of reasonable NFL minds that have no dog in the fight, they don't care if Brock Purdy's good or bad. They're just analyzing what they see and the numbers that come across. Like, Brock's one of those guys that the efficiency numbers will pop at times, but then you watch him play and then you go watch, like, for example, you watch the game with Brock Purdy facing Jordan Love. And then imagine you just close your eyes and then reopen them, and then you're watching the Josh Allen Mahomes game. Like, the level of quarterback play in that game, regardless of what the stats say, was so far advanced from what Jordan Love and Brock Purdy were doing. And it's not a knock on Brock or Jordan. Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are like the gold standard of quarterbacking in the NFL. Lamar Jackson, 2-time MVP, gold standard of efficiency, of getting the ball down the field without you stopping it, like in any way, shape, or form. Arms, legs, all ways. Brock's just not that guy, and that's okay. It doesn't make him a bad quarterback. It just means he's limited by his physical restraints. And those physical upsides, those tools, doesn't have as many tools in the toolbox as an Allen or a Mahomes or a Lamar Jackson does. Again, it doesn't mean he can't win a Super Bowl. Doesn't mean he's not a perfect fit for the Niners offense, but he's not the MVP of the league. He never was. He never will be. And that's okay. Like, not everyone's going to be the MVP. Like, that's Mahomes. That's Josh Allen. That's Lamar Jackson. Brock Purdy, if he plays within the system and he does everything he has to do, he can look like an all-star quarterback. But the tools, the physical tools that really separate the greats, I just don't think Brock has it.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. And
he's going to play better this week, though.
Yeah.
I do, yeah, because that Lions secondary,
yeah, exactly.
That's the thing, man.
It's a good matchup this week for him.
Yeah, when you look at Cameron Sutton, this is like playing cornerback in the NFL. So he gets torched by Justin Jefferson in Week 18. Then he draws up Puka Nacua, who torches him in the wild card round. And then he's got to guard Mike Evans, who torched him in the divisional round. Now he's probably got Brandon Ayuk, which is like, good luck to you. But, man, Sutton, he is getting torched. Some of these routes, like Puka Nacua had a 50-yard touchdown catch, and it was just like this simple little double move, and Sutton was nowhere near Puka Nacua. Like, that is a bad matchup. That's why this Lions pass rush, it's got to get home. You got to put pressure on Brock Purdy, or he's going to dice that secondary up. They're just not good enough.
Well, and he's great against pressure also. Like Brock Purdy, I think it's underrated his ability to understand ball placement on deep routes, his anticipation on some of his throws. It's advanced beyond his years in the NFL. There are times where he's doing stuff that you watch it and you say, oh, yeah, that's the type of thing that we saw a Tom Brady do year 5 as a starter in the league, and he's already doing it in year 2. You know, there are certain blitz pickups that he's helping the offensive line with, or hot reads on, blitzes where the defense is bringing more bodies than your offense or, your formation can block, and he's getting the ball out quickly to the right pass catcher. He does a lot right, and he plays extremely well within this system. And by the way, Tom Brady was labeled as a system quarterback for years, a half a decade before he started getting the respect that he, quote-unquote, deserved. But I also think that's respect that he earned. And that's the part of this conversation that I'm so confused about, is where do people who watch football, and I consider a lot of the people I've heard from recently, the Richard Shermans of the world, and there have been many others. His name comes to mind because of his ardent defense of Brock Purdy. It's like, where do you come off, talking about a guy like he's earned it all at this level already, and he's just barely played over one season in this league. I mean, he started halfway through the year last year. And I understand he played some postseason games too, but he's only been a full-time starter for just this season. Could we pump the brakes on welcoming him to Canton? But then, on the other side of it, I get it. Yeah, it was a really crummy outing in the divisional round, and Jordan Love undoubtedly played a better game. He looked more poised. He looked like the lights weren't too bright for him. Brock Purdy, it was the exact opposite. And if you have a bad weather quarterback, or if you have a quarterback who can't play in bad weather, I got news for you. That's going to be a problem. That is going to be a problem for you. So he's got to figure that out if that's the case. But steering back to the point I was trying to make, like, it wasn't that bad. Like, so for anybody coming out against Brock Purdy, like, well, the Niners aren't going to win until they fix the Purdy problem. It's like, whoa, like, the Niners wouldn't have even been in the playoffs last year if it weren't for Brock Purdy. You could probably make that argument this year, too. So we got to pump our brakes on both sides of this debate and let this thing bear out, because I remember RG3 back in 2012 looked like he was going to take over the league, and then within 3 years we were like, well, that was a bust. And there are guys who are kind of on a slow simmer, and they heat up into the quarterback they're going to be in this league. So I just say we don't have to hit the pause button, but we definitely got to take our finger off of rewind or fast forward and just let this thing play out.
Brock's the perfect quarterback for this. I mean, he's perfect. Like let's not try to ask him to do something that he can't do. In this particular case, I guess it's grip the ball in the wet weather. And that is a problem because, again, close your eyes and think about watching that Packers-Niners game. It was a little wet, a little slippy, right? But it was, 50 degrees, 55 degrees, very light winds in Santa Clara. And then you close your eyes and you think about the Bills-Chiefs game, which was played in 10, 15-degree weather in 20-mile-an-hour gusts off the Lake Erie, the crazy Buffalo, Western New York weather. Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are ripping it. The Chiefs averaged 10 yards per play. Every time the Chiefs snapped the ball in that game, they were getting a first down. You just can't compare what Mahomes and these guys can do to a Brock Purdy. And again, it's not a knock on Brock. It's like saying the 6'5" guy can dunk, and you're mad that the guy that's 5'10" can't. He's gifted. And not all humans are gifted with the type of skills that the Mahomes and the Allens and the Lamar Jacksons are. And I think what Brock needs to do is get back to the bread and butter. This is a Niners offense. When they are in rhythm and executing their scheme, they aren't a lot better with the efficiency. And Brock is great at putting the ball where it needs to be at the exact right moment in the exact right spot. He won't have any weather or any wind to deal with. It's perfect, ideal conditions in Santa Clara Sunday. Granted, the weather could change in 24 hours, but right now we're seeing 70 degrees with no wind, no weather, nothing. Literally perfect conditions. And to Brian's point, you're facing a Lions defense that is kind of a sieve. And I was talking about getting Debo onto the field. So even if he's just a decoy, get him onto the field to get into 11 personnel, which is 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers. Because when the Lions have to match that with their nickel, they are bottom 5 in almost every single passing metric I could find. Efficiency, success rate, explosive play rate. You get the Lions into their nickel coverage, you will have success throwing the ball down the field. It's just a matter of who's going to catch it. Maybe it's Kittle, maybe it's Ayuk, maybe it's Jennings, maybe it is Debo, maybe it's McCaffrey. Just get him into nickel and you're going to have success against this Lions defense.
You know what's interesting to me? There is a twist right here. I don't know if you guys agree with this, but a lot of people think that the critics hold on to Brock Purdy being Mr. Irrelevant, right? The last pick of the draft. I actually think it's the Brock Purdy fan club that holds on to that more so. Because there is a school of thought where, hey, if Brock Purdy is the number 3 overall pick like Trey Lance was, what are people saying? Are they knocking him as much? So maybe there's this feeling that you're shortchanging him because of where he's drafted. That could be the case from time to time. But the amount of support, as if this is like a mother hog and her piglets are getting picked on. You know what I mean? I think a lot of that traces back to him being Mr. Irrelevant. I think the fan club is more beholden to that. Where if you say he's got to pick it up or they're going to lose going forward, this is only his 4th playoff game. He's won every game he's finished. They come after you, man. I don't know that they'd be coming after you the same way and really just absolving him of any wrongdoing whatsoever. I think it traces directly back to him being the last pick of the draft.
I agree with you. I really do. I think that because Brock Purdy has outshined every single expectation for him at this level already. Being just merely competent, he would outshine any expectation because it is really hard just to be competent at this league level just period. I'm just going to say, it doesn't matter if you're a first rounder or if you're an undrafted free agent. It's difficult to be a competent football player in the NFL. So he's already overshined every expectation for him. So now he is being held by some to an unfair level of expectation. And unfortunately for deluded Niners fans out there, they're going to take Brock Purdy and they're going to protect them like a mother hen. Or like Mama Pig. They're going to, it really does. It feels like a barnyard fable out there because they're not letting anybody talk about their Brocky. And it's like, well, listen, Brock's a big boy. He's playing big boy sports now, and he's been doing it on one of the best teams in the NFL. So let's allow this to percolate a little bit and not jump to so many conclusions. But it is. I had no idea he was such a polarizing character until Monday morning.
Well, we're getting a ton of tweets already. Like, I'm getting some tweets right now. You guys probably see them showing up in your mentions too. Hey, listen, if you guys tweet us, we might read it on the air. So I'll read this one, and you guys can respond. And this is a very valid question. He's from Happy for Life on Twitter. Thank you for the question, pal. We're not claiming Purdy's the best quarterback in the league. We're pushing back on people who discredit his success by saying it's not because of him. Best QB stats in the NFL, 2 straight championship games. Start Curry. What else can he do? It's not him. It's a team sport. Right. The Niners have the best team in the NFL, and he is the perfect fit at quarterback. It is the one situation, I think, in the NFL where the quarterback doesn't deserve all of the credit or the blame when his team loses and wins. I think it's the one situation in the NFL at a high level, right? Like the Niners are winning at a high level. None of the other teams in the Final Four you can say this about. Lamar Jackson. I guess maybe you could talk a little bit about it with the Lions, but they're more of a team too. But Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, like, let's be honest, guys, those teams are there because their quarterbacks are great and they've got good defenses. With the Niners, their offense is like a team offense. Like all 11 guys have to be on the same page. And if all of those things are happening, Brock Purdy's the perfect trigger man. But you could put if you put Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes on the Niners, they would probably be in the same spot. They probably would be.
I'll give you another one. Brian, answer this question. Okay. If Brock Purdy was the starting quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs, would the Chiefs be in the AFC Championship game?
No, they would not. But that's the thing is, I don't know what it is about the Purdy fan club where they have so much in their favor to make good arguments on the behalf of their boy Purdy.
Yeah, they're winning.
They always manage to royally step in it. Where it's like, I don't know how they manage to do that every time. They don't recognize that the success is because of Brock Purdy. Do you really think that the Panthers, that the Patriots, they'd be doing what the Niners are doing if Purdy were there? What are you talking about?
The Panthers might be worse, frankly. They actually might.
Yeah, it's possible.